my character, you meet at the beginning after I meet Joe and Chantel when they join the backhold wrestling class, and I turn up at the beginning of the play, very nervous. Helen is the oldest and the most naive, I suppose, the most innocent. Could I say innocent? Is she innocent? I think she is in her own way, and because she's been married for 40 years and her husband leaves her. And I know a few women that their life, they don't know what to do. It's they gave their life over to this man and their family, and then the husband just says, well, I'm leaving you now, and Helen's sort of abandoned, you know, and she doesn't know what to do with her life. And so back, which is an odd way of, she sees the flyer in the post office and says, well, I'm going to try that. And she does, and she comes into this mix of women, and I think she goes on her own journey of trying to listen and, you know, and tries to understand about race, about gender, you know, body dysmorphia, because she doesn't understand. She's, as I say, she is innocent, she's naive, but she wants to learn, she wants to know.
Pamela has organised this gathering of team members. She's put out a flyer, or you know, she's been advertising for new people to get into backhold wrestling because it's her thing. And I think she wants the sport to survive. And she's at a point in her life where that really matters, because she also, we discover later, wants to have a baby and is going to have to be out of the loop for a while. And backhold wrestling's a bit of an endangered sport. And so she needs to kind of find new people, particularly like women, because it's a really male-dominated, but it's also a sort of quite an endangered thing. So for lots of reasons, she's trying to gather some new people together to form a team to compete in this season's Highland Games to win the championship. So it's kind of, for her, it's about investing in the future of the sport. It's possibly a last hurrah for doing this tournament for her. So it's a big deal. So when we meet her, she arrives into the space, wherever the first training session's been organised, probably some village hall or something, to see these 4 very diverse women who've all turned up for their own reasons to this first training session. Pamela is a psychologist and a therapist, and has definitely taken a kind of slightly new agey, holistic approach to therapy. Although she's right into winning when it comes to sport, and that's a big thing for her. Her kind of worldview is all about nurturing and sort of mothering and ensuring the future of the planet. And, you know, she wants to have a baby. She wants a world for the baby to live in. She wants a world for backhold wrestling to exist into the future in as well. Well, always I think the thing is, like, reading the script, and your first impressions are really, really valuable. So it's just to kind of like, sometimes I'll just voice note that, because I can speak and think faster than I can type or scribble. I can't read my handwriting anymore. So that's what I usually always do. And for me, it's like finding the voices, the way in, and what's encoded in the text. Like, what is there in the lines that the character says that gives that away? What do other people say about them? What do they say about themselves? What do they say about other people? So those things are kind of really good practical things. What do I say about myself? What do I say about other people? What do other people say about me? And things like, you know, worldview and all that sort of thing. And also, like, it's kind of go, what's my character's blind spot? What do they sort of go some way towards discovering? And then it's just about, it's clues. You're always looking for clues to kind of reveal the character more and more to yourself, and that never stops. Like, I know people who run fitness classes. I'm related to some of them. So, like, you've got references in your life to kind of go, like, what have I got that I can use for this? What's in my workshop? What's in my pantry of experience and relationships in life? You draw on all that. What do I need to look outside of me for? So you kind of think, well, things like the IVF, that was something you had to research, had to kind of look into. The gender questioning, that was something that I, when I was cycling into work, which was practical, but also a wee bit like, keeping fit. That's one of the other things. I had audiobooks about people's experiences of like gender dysphoria and all that stuff, which was really, really useful. The most useful thing I did on that subject was talk to Nat about what she intended for the character, because I went down different routes in my head. And there's a line that Pamela says to Helen, I'm not punishing anything, that's what the character's not doing with strapping and things like that, which then I thought, oh, maybe that's a body dysmorphia thing, who's moving towards top surgery or whatever, but actually it's not that. And I only found that out through talking to Nat, and then you kind of negotiate, well, how do I then sort of make the story work for me? So it's a bit, what clues are in the text, and then just investigating in various different ways through conversations with people, through like reading around and all that sort of thing. But one of the most useful things was when fortunately with this play, for part of it, we got to go on tour in the Highlands and Islands. So I got to, and my character is of the Highland Games. And so I actually met somebody on Mull who, an American woman, but I was like, straight away I was like, that's my character, that's Pamela. And that having that reference in my head, like I chatted to her a bit, and her physicality and all that, I was like, it really changed the game for me. I was like, I think I know better now who she is. Like one thing that came to mind that you said on day one is like, where are the wins in the script for your character? And it's useful anyway, kind of just in a sort of dramaturgical sense, to think like, who's, what are people trying, what's your objective in the scene, and who wins the scene? Who kind of like comes off. But because it's this sort of sporting thing, and it's all, where are the wins for your character, and really, really play those, because then it sort of makes you feel really active. And so that was a kind of really good thing to start with. And he would tell us to really go for it with the WWE bit at the beginning and make that as huge as you want, because it's sort of like, it just flexes all your acting chops and muscle, and literally all your muscles, for kind of starting in that sort of energized way. It's a real kind of rocket launch into the show. And another thing was like, we're a team, so to kind of make sure that we have that in mind when we're doing these big scenes together, and like the team dynamic and the team spirit was something that he was like always telling us to remember and really go for.
Helen is the kind of she doesn't connect with anybody at first. In fact, they ignore her. Everybody ignores her, but she keeps going. She keeps going. So it's she doesn't have that real connection, and then you find that in the rehearsal room. And I think, funnily enough, I think the one person she does connect with is Effie's character, Imogen, and because we have wee looks and we find looks, and that's what's been great in the process, because they do cut Helen off. She's the older woman, and it is quite rude. But that's they all have their own pains and angst, and so does Helen to go through, and that's how they treat Helen, even Pamela.
Mo's character Helen is very much in Pamela's story, and what's brilliant about what's Nat's done with that is like Pamela is supposed to be the therapist and is supposed to know what other people need and how to approach it, and she tries to she's got this tough love approach to Helen, which is probably not a great way to inspire her, but nevertheless, Helen takes it and runs with it, and actually does, probably Helen thrives off it somehow anyway. But Pamela gives Helen some not great advice, but Helen has got much more insight into what Pamela needs and gives her much more than what Pamela gives Helen. So it's kind of like that brilliant sort of role reversal where, you'd expect Pamela to be able to solve her problems, but the opposite happens, and that's really good storytelling, I think.
With Helen and Pamela's character is when you asked me to come to give you the injection. That moment is when it flips, actually, the relationship flips, where Helen takes charge of Pamela and takes care of her. And that's when she's not fazed by helping her with the injection, and there's no judgment. There's nothing, there's just, I'm here for you, I'll do it, whatever you want. So I think that's a key moment for Helen and Pamela's character, for me anyway. I think it's that scene where I give you the injection.
Absolutely. Because one of the first things Pamela says is needing others is a weakness. validation comes from within, because she's determined to do something by herself. So she's on a journey towards accepting that everybody needs people, that no person is an island, we're all connected to each other. Her kind of like blindness, or that's her need that needs to be kind of be enlightened about by the end of it, and it's via Helen that happens. And it's at a moment where, having had Helen, first of all, inquire about what's going on with her, and that makes her uncomfortable, makes it feel like she's, that feels quite intrusive. But that connection that Helen's making with her, with compassion and generosity and like real sort of tenderness and concern, eventually, whenever she's up against the wall, it's Helen that she phones up and says, "I need your help." And that's when she sort of starts to kind of come round to being, to realising that the only way forward in her life for, to live a kind of happy, fulfilled life, it's not to win a baby and win the tournament. Those things would be amazing, but there'll be, you can't, human connections everywhere. It's not just, in your head. So I think that's a big deal. A smaller beat with Imogen, and it is just a brief thing, because of Pamela's relationship to motherhood, she explodes at Imogen. There's a moment, and it's a horrible moment, and she handles it really badly, and then tries to resolve it, and slightly kind of is cack-handed about that as well. But they meet minds and bodies in that when Imogen challenges Pamela to a wrestle. And I think that sort of, they resolve it there. And I think it's sort of understood that even though Pamela has crossed a line big time and used some really quite unfortunate language, not meaning to have any kind of racial aspect to it, but it's unconsciously there, that they have found sort of some sort of resolve there, because Imogen is one of the best in the group. Like, she's the one who's really going for it.
Jo and Chantel have their own angst to engage with Helen. She tries, but I think the one she connects with is Imogen, and says the wrong thing, of course, says about her being a wonderful colour. And of course, it's a racist remark, but she didn't mean it like that. It's not. It's so naive and so innocently said. Imogen's character does connect with Helen, which I do like. But there's not many scenes. There's one scene. What am I talking about? She gives her the hype song to help her get through the fight. So there is a connection with Effie, Imogen's character.
That story of their friendship is so central to the to the whole thing. It's kind of the engine of the play is to a great extent driven by that triangle of those three youngsters. I think arriving and seeing that people have actually turned up and that there's 4 of them and that this could happen, I think that is like game on for Pamela. And she's like, "You're all here, right, here we go." Having this aspect of her personal life discovered by Helen is another key moment. And then the last bit, when we all get rallied, I think is big for us all, but so that sort of goes without saying. So, but the next one, whenever Helen comes round and helps Pamela with the injection, and she says, "This is the last time I'm trying," and she's kind of like, "Well, I'm going to be there to do it with you." I think that's huge for Pamela, because she's accepting help and making herself vulnerable, so that in a way that she just hasn't gone there with anybody present before.
There's quite a few Helen has, actually, in her journey. Arriving for backhold wrestling, it's something she wouldn't have seen herself doing if her husband hadn't left her. The tie-dye T-shirt was a moment which is really sad, because she's so excited about getting this tie-dyed T-shirt, and she loves the colours. So it's that control he's had over her life, isn't it? And that's, to get so excited about a tie-dyed, it's quite sad, but it's also quite uplifting. And I think that's a change. She puts it on, and then she fails because she gets beaten by a 12-year-old wrestler. But she gets up because she enjoys the pain. Then there's the pain speech, which she finds, uplifting. That she felt something. It was the first time she felt something in years. to be thrown into the ground, to feel the grass. So that was a huge change. And then helping Pamela, trying to understand Pamela's journey and what it's all about, her dysmorphia. Is she a male, female, wanting a baby? Because Helen's got so much experience to give, but she doesn't realise that until she starts talking to Pamela. Helen's got so much to give, I think, all the way through the play. Whether she gets listened to or not is another matter from some of the younger ones. And then at the end, she gets to make a kilt with the different threads and the colours, and tries to bring them together and say, come on, let's just, a team is, acknowledging your differences. Let's do this, be there on Saturday. I'm going to go, so can you. Why can't you be there if I'm going? And they do turn up. Acknowledging people's differences, listening to people. Don't judge, try not to be too judgmental. Allow people to fail, allow people to make mistakes. Also enjoy it. It's a fun piece, it's very funny, but it's got an important message, that we're all vulnerable, we've all got baggage, every single one of us. No one's perfect, thank goodness. And try not to be hard on yourself and other people.
You'd want the audience to feel the kind of the buzz of, all of that visceral, like throwing each other about it and the pumping music and all that. So I hope that the audience get a real thrill from watching it, and also that they can, considering the experience of people who might be nothing like them, not part of their demographic, not in their echo chamber or whatever online, or not in their age group. So that chasms between generation gaps and sort of where people might be polarised, they're introduced to the voices of and experiences of people they maybe wouldn't necessarily intentionally or otherwise listen to. I know members of my family who've come to see it have had that experience of being kind of oh right, okay, yeah, I never really thought about that, and entrenched views sort of less entrenched now. And also that sense of your identity, whatever that means to you, but your sense of nationhood. Some people just think, they assume they know what that is, and Chantel's got a speech which was like, well, you know what it is, it's I'm not going to do what she does, but she says it's like Rolling Glens and whiskey and all that sort of thing, and haggis, and it's all right to kind of go what is that for me? And so I hope people come away asking, what is Scottishness for me? And to keep asking that, because it's not a fixed thing, it can change. Your sense of who you are can change, because we're always changing all the time. We're not locked into one sort of sense of self. And actually acknowledging that it is a wrestle sometimes with, I feel like a bag of contradictions. Well, we all are.
Absolutely,
that.
Yeah.
And I think that I hope that people kind of go, well, it's not wrong to feel conflicted. There's
no right way,
completely normal and universal.
Yeah.
Yeah.